Hello and welcome to the next instalment in the fabulous podcast, Everyday People Living Inspirational Lives. Today I've got with me a gentleman who I think will excite you and titivate you in terms of everything he's going to share about the way he conducts his life, the way he lives his life, and the way that he shares his philosophy in life with the rest of the world. He's definitely a man that practices what he preaches. So, hello, Liam, and welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So, would you like to take a moment and introduce yourself to the people that are listening to this podcast?
I think the easiest way of probably saying it is that I'm a kayaker. I'm not saying I'm a good kayaker, but I'm definitely a kayaker, and that's what I've been doing for the last sort of 16 years, and definitely sort of last 10 years. Kind of, it's been shaping my life. So whatever it's either through work or through play or through reading or anything, anything. I'm a bit of a one-trick pony, and that's something that I really enjoy and spend a lot of time doing. So that's the quickest word to sum it up.
A kayaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's quite a broad definition, because there's probably quite a lot of people that will call themselves a kayaker, but may not necessarily go about it in the world in the way that you do, or as committed to it as the way as you are.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you've got to where you're at in life, and how the definition or the title of kayaker has ended up being bestowed upon you.
So probably started. Well, I got a passion for the outdoors, and the outdoors was kind of the gateway to kayaking. So I would do lots. I was just younger, 8 or 9 years old. I would do lots of like outdoor adventure weeks and stuff like that with school holidays. And it was the first thing I think I was kind of good at. And it's not that I was good, but I could throw myself at it. That's the beauty of some of these things, like jumping in a river. It's quite easy to do, really. You could you just have a go at it. But so in the school holidays, that was something I really enjoyed doing. I didn't really enjoy school at all. And then there was the opportunity when I was 16 to go and do, instead of my A-levels, an outdoor education course, which was like a BTEC in outdoor. And so I went and did that. And there was climbing and kayaking, and going from the bottom of the class in maths and geography and everything else I'd done at school. I went and did this, which I loved, but also found myself I found to my great sort of shame that I wasn't very good at that either. I wasn't any good at kayaking or climbing, but we got to do it every week. And then one week, we'd done loads of climbing, and then one week we went kayaking on a river trip, and I just loved it. And the reason I loved it is because though I fell in sort of 30 times, I finished it. So I started at the top of the river, and I finished where everyone else finished. And I thought, right, well, I can stick at this. I liked it. I liked being cold. I liked being tired. I liked being a little bit scared. And then I finished the whole trip. So I liked that A to B of kayaking. And it went on from there. And then I briefly dabbled in becoming a teacher. So I went to university to become a teacher, which I didn't really want to do, but I kind of failed myself for a bit and went into it, not listening to my own voice. And then dropped out of that spectacularly. And then I moved down to Exeter and did an outdoor apprenticeship in working at an outdoor centre. And then from there I just did more and more kayaking. It's taken me all around the world, to Bhutan, to Ecuador, to Nepal. Loads of kayaking in Devon. So it's just the last 10 years since I quit uni, it has just shaped my life.
So what notable trips have you done? And is there anything that you've done that you would regard as a Liam signature trip or experience in the last 10 years then?
So my biggest sort of trip that I did recently, I guess, or my biggest trip was I did a Grand Canyon. So the Grand Canyon in America, there's a lovely river called the Colorado running through it, which shapes it, and it's sort of 226 miles, big sort of class 4 white water. And I did a solo trip of that a couple of years ago in December. So just me and my boat, and spent sort of 13 days sort of doing that, and spent a lot of time on my own down there, as you can imagine, and just fully immersed in that. And that was a great trip. And then also I've been working out in Ecuador for the last few winters and taking people. I'm lucky in that I enjoy kayaking as much as I enjoy sort of teaching kayaking and guiding kayaking. They're different and they need managing differently, but I enjoy both almost equally, depending on what sort of day it is. So I take people out kayaking in Ecuador with a company called Small Adventures, who've been working out there, and taking people to Nepal. So they're sort of places I often visit as well.
Cool. Cool. And so you mentioned about being cold and wet there,
Yeah.
and so I'm laughing and smiling because um, uh, we probably both have a relationship with February mornings and it being cold and wet and dark and and putting on wet kit and still being prepared to go and have an amazing experience. So when you've got to really motivate yourself, when you've got one of those times when you're cold and wet, what is it you do? How is it that you motivate yourself to go and throw yourself into these experiences?
I know now, sort of more clearly, that I'm going to value it tomorrow. So I take a great sort of leap, and I'm sure people do it in other walks of life and other sports and exercises. But I know if it's cold and tired now, I know that I'm going to feel better for it tomorrow or even that evening, and I'm going to really value it. The chip butty after a day's kayaking tastes much better than it does after a day doing nothing. So it's knowing that I'm going to have enriched experiences after it.
Cool. So as a kayaker then, as a human being on the planet, what inspires you?
Um, people just having a go, just not overthinking it, not over worrying about it and reading about it and daydreaming about it, but just having a crack at it. And I wish I'd learned that earlier. I wish someone had just said, no one knows what they're doing. They're all just winging it and having a go. So when I see people, no matter what passion it is, whether they're going, right, I want to get into doing stand-up comedy, and they go and do that. I mean, that's the idea. Terrifies me. I love people that are just doing it and having a go. And you've had some speakers on here, and you hear a lot of people just talk about it. So you had Cal Major on here, and she said her first trip that she did around Cornwall on a paddleboard. She hadn't been doing much paddleboarding in the ocean before, and that was her first go. I know a guy called Tom Rainey who's just one day decided to row across the Atlantic, and he hadn't done it before. It's that first step when people make that first sort of commitment or just having a go at it for highs or lows or for pass or fail. I like that. I like that first starting bit.
And what is it? Have you really you ever thought about or analysed actually what is it that within that commitment piece? Is there anything that you've really honed in on that is beyond that just having a go?
It's people who do these sort of things, not being committed to either. First of all, they're not. I thought everyone knew what they were doing and they could do these amazing expeditions. But often part of the expedition or adventure is that they're just starting and backing themselves. So that's probably it. Is they're backing themselves to figure it out. And I wish I'd known that earlier. I think that's a great quality that people have when they go, well, I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but I'm pretty sure I can figure it out.
Cool. I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
If ever there was a slogan to go on a T-shirt that you could wander around wearing, then that's it. That is genius. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's cool. So when because I've known you now probably, I don't know, we were just having a conversation just before we started about the passage of time. So I'm going to go probably 5 or 6 years. And in that time that I've known you, you've done some pretty amazing things. And my wife stalks you on all of your social media channels because she finds actually some of the ways that you talk about the world and the fact that you just give it a go as incredibly inspirational. So do you seek to be an inspiration to others?
No, I don't at all. I'd like, if I could give some inspirational advice, it would be nice to sort of inspire some sort of so younger people who wanted to go and work in the outdoors, or to have a passion, or to have the idea of if you think you can do it and sort of backing yourself, then have a go at it. But I definitely don't think on the grand scale or scheme of things that I know that I should be an inspiration in any sorts.
Oh, that's interesting. So what makes you think you're not or you shouldn't be then?
I don't think anyone should think that they are. It's not just me. I think, I just don't. I don't think anyone should have that sort of think that about themselves.
Okay.
For my own, whatever, for good or for bad. I think it's a strange thing to think.
So it's just this casually very passive thing that you wander around achieving then.
Yeah, I mean that's nice and flattering, but yeah, I think the moment I thought it might crumble, so you can't grasp it too tight.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you've mentioned trips around the world. So is travel? Is that part of also what inspires you? Is that relationship with different places and things, or is it about the scale of the challenge when you go to different places and different things? What is it about other parts of the world that you're attracted to?
Definitely, when I was younger, I valued it quite a lot. I was lucky to travel a bit when I was younger, anyway. But I love seeing new places. And I do value going to different places and different cultures and meeting different people. But I don't think adventure or doing these things needs to be in different countries. I think recently more so, I've been thinking that there's so many things you can do or put yourself in sort of an adventurous situation just on your doorstep. And I'm sort of focused on. I'm a new father, so I've got a little bit less time at the moment, a little bit less money and stuff. So I'm searching out adventure in sort of more local areas. But I do enjoy travel, and and kayaking is a beautiful way to see the country because you go down canyons and into areas that people aren't visiting because often there's nothing else there. There isn't, things set up for tourists, but you get to see these beautiful spots, and then you get to interact in ways you wouldn't have sort of done if you'd gone to the tourist spots. Like I know one phrase in Italian which is stuck in my head because I got lost in a field and I found a little boy who was walking around sort of farming, and I had the phrase book and I said "Dove grande cascata," which I might be pronouncing wrong, which is "where is the large waterfall?" And that phrase is now stuck in my head. And he sort of pointed it out, and we went and paddled this waterfall. But that was a nice moment that with a local kid that kind of got excited to see us paddling the waterfall that I just wouldn't have had on the normal track.
Hmm. Um, so when you're on a river, when you're in your boat, when you're actually kayaking, so you've got past the cold and wet bit. Actually, what's the essence of that for you? What's the exciting part? What's the bit where you really feel as though, or when you really feel as though you're at home?
Yeah, I've thought about this before a lot, so that's come up. So it's just so you know, this answer isn't off the cuff, but it's sometimes I think it's mistaken for being an adrenaline junkie. Or do you like fear? Or do you like being scared? Or do you like being risking things? And I don't like that at all. I don't like any of those things. I don't like being scared. I don't like. I feel like I'm in trouble or I'm gonna be hurt. I like being comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, and that's the same with camping and with climbing and with kayaking. I like being in control of what those situations are sort of throwing at you and dealing with that, and that sort of flow state that people talk about when you're doing it without sort of conscious effort. So you're in a rapid and it's loud and it's burly and it's splashy and there's rocks and you don't feel anything apart from dealing with that moment. And even that you're not really feeling, you're just dealing with it. You're very in that moment. I really enjoy that.
And do you have a process that you go through to get into that moment, or does it just occur around you?
I've got better at making sure I'm not scared and tired when I get to rivers. So, I'll listen to certain audio books or sing or be with the right people. I'm very sort of choosy about being around a good crowd when I want to do maybe hard rivers. So it's choosing the people, being in a good space when you go and do these things.
And what constitutes a good crowd for you then,
Lim? So I can picture people. I'm trying to think what qualities they've got.
I mean, you could embarrass them and name names.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to though.
Yeah, I've got a friend called Mike Clampett who I love, and we first met in Italy kayaking. We met there, and we had a great week kayaking together. And I didn't see him again. I knew then this is a good guy and we're good mates after only a week of kayaking. And sometimes you work with people for years and never consider them mates. So in that week, it was intense. And then a year later, I bumped into him again in Italy. We paddled the same stretches again. And then I didn't see him all that year. And the third time I met him pretty much was in Norway, and we paddled again. It was like this little 3 weeks over 3 years. And we've kayaked a lot now. And we're very good friends. We see each other quite a lot. But we can look across the river and with a glance be like, And I'm going to get off this one too. Or I'm going to walk. Or I've got a throw line. This is kind of automatic sort of understanding of each other's sort of I don't know, what they want from the river, that they're completely confident in saying, do you know what? I'm having a bad time. I want to get off, and there's no judgment. Or you can say, I'm having a great time, or I recognize you're not having a great time. So should we do something else? And that sort of understanding of what other people want from the river and from the day, I really like. And just so no egos. So just people who are there for good fun, and look over their shoulder to make sure that everyone else is having good fun as well.
And that's an interesting phrase, isn't it? No ego. A lot of the coaching work that I do with people, actually, very often they'll use the phrase of getting over themselves, or actually letting go of their ego. So how do you define no ego then?
That they're not there to on the river to sort of celebrate themselves. They're there to. It's a weird thing, kayaking. It's a mixture of being a very strong team sport. So you're on the river with a bunch of people, and they're looking after you and you're looking after them. But then in that, you are having your own experience, because it's the river and you and your kayak. So I think sometimes people get caught up in what they want to do, and maybe just them in the river. And people who recognize that they're actually part of this whole team and the whole day out, I think that's their kind of that's when there's a good sign that they've got no ego, is they can happily go, oh yeah, I'll do another lap, or I won't do another lap, or I can jump up and get the rope on this, and just be really open to other people's happiness on the river.
Do you know what? I've boated for don't know. I've probably boated for about 20 odd years, because I was quite late to it. But that's a genius way of explaining it. I think
yeah. Sorry, I think it's crazy.
Lovely.
I think it's crazy when people also try and put their values or their anticipations on another person. So when someone goes, oh, I'm going to walk this rapid, and someone goes, oh, don't walk it. I think, why are they? That's such a strange thing to say. Like, it's their experience. You could say, do you want any advice on it? Or you could say, I can hold a rope, or I can, do you want me to talk to you about the line? But when people just sort of say, oh, I'd paddle it, and sort of put their reasons onto somebody else, I find it a bit strange. I don't care if anyone walks any rapid on any river, and I like it when people think the same thing and are just really open to making sure that they have the best day, and so does everyone else on the river.
Yeah. So what's been? You mentioned the Grand Canyon earlier, and actually, my recollection is that you work quite hard to be able to prep for that, and had the experience, and some of the photography that you took, that you post on your social media about the journey, after you've experienced it, was just beautiful. So what do you think your biggest lesson out of that whole window of time on the Grand Canyon?
The lesson which I was aware when I was starting it was I need to I wanted to feel all the experience of it by organizing and doing everything. And I'm not sure it's the best word, because it's got negative connotations, but it was completely selfish. I wanted a trip for myself, by myself, so I could absorb it all. Because I teach kayaking and I talk about kayaking and I work in kayaking, and part of that is that you've got to do stuff for yourself so you can be so full of enthusiasm for it, because you've got such a rich experience to draw from, that you can keep giving it out. So if you're working in kayaking, or you're working in what you love, I'm sure that you've got to be still doing what you love. So it's definitely an investment in, it was a tap on the back, and sort of well done for sticking with all this sort of kayaking and being in it. But also I was aware that it was a selfish trip to kind of really give myself a good time on the river, so I could keep paying it forward. And there's a lot of learning in it. That was part of the beauty. It was a lot of organising, which sometimes I'm not great at, and a lot of saving money, which sometimes I'm not great at. So those are there. And then the lesson that I didn't know was going to come from it was I really enjoyed spending time alone, not all the time. And looking back on it, it was important, and it was really enjoyable. And I've sought that out more since, looking at doing stuff on my own and being alone for a day or something, and just taking time to think.
And so you've recently also done a big trip in Nepal. Similar or different?
Similar. Yeah, similar is that I wanted to go. So this was a paddleboard trip of 135 kilometers of a river in the west of Nepal, And that was similar in that I've recently started, not in the last few years, teaching paddleboarding and doing more paddleboarding. And I started seeing them as great platforms. And when I'm talking to people about it and teaching them, um, I wanted to go and find some more of it for myself. So the next trip I did, I was like, I want to do it on a paddleboard. I think I want to do something on a paddleboard because I've done more and more of it. And in fact, you taught me to be an instructor in paddleboarding. If that was the course that we did, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just want to practice what I preach, and I want to sort of do more and more of it. And so I learned a lot by having a crack at it. And I brought a friend with me as well, and who'd never done any paddleboarding or any river trips, and he did it. So that was kind of a fun twist on it as well. Sort of not getting him down the river. He did it by himself, but definitely helping him out figuring it out.
You've just made paddleboarding seem like a relatively benign activity there now, Liam, by having someone who's never done any paddleboarding before getting down a massive river in Nepal.
Yeah, but he did it. I mean, he sat down sometimes and used the kayak paddle, but he definitely he did it. So it's proof it can be done. Yeah, he just started and had a go at it.
Oh, amazing. And that's one of the big things in life, isn't it? How many people actually have overanalyzed it, have out-taught themselves before actually just trusting in who they are as a human being and making that commitment to get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, we got contingency plans. If it all goes pear-shaped, we could have figured it out as well. We didn't know what we were going to figure out, but I'm sure we could have done. But yeah, it went smoothly. It was good.
So, if you had to share your life lessons with someone who went, I don't like water, or actually, if you had to share your life lessons and you were parachuted into a company in Exeter, or somewhere around the southwest, and they went, right then, what have you got to teach us from the life that you've lived so far? What ideas would you share with them?
To sort of go full hog at it, to have a good go at it, to stop. I mean, questioning yourself has its place, obviously, but I don't think that's the problem with a lot of things. I think it's the first bit of having a go, just absolutely starting. I mean, it's a silly game, but sometimes I'm sat on the TV on the couch and I look at the remote and I think, if my life depended on it, could I get this without moving my body? Just with my arm, and I'm stretching, I'm flicking rulers at it. Just like, this is a good game. If I absolutely had to, could I figure this out? And I think that's the same with the paddleboard trip for my friend Rich in Nepal. I was like, I'm absolutely sure we can get him down this river. Is it going to be easy? Probably not. Is there going to be arguments? Probably. And there's going to be problems in our way, but I'm fairly sure we can do it. It's not the fact there's going to be no problems or we're going to be able to figure out every problem before we start. We're just going to have to figure them out. Just absolutely have a go. Solve the problem.
And I'm assuming since you both got back safe and well, then you did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. We hardly had any arguments. I mean, we used to live together. And we argued about everything. Crumbs by the toaster, for example. But we hardly argued when it mattered, and when the emotions are high. Things kind of both got a bit calmer for us. We had better conversations. We did about less stressful things, in fact.
Cool. And you mentioned right at the start of this, and about being a new dad. So what have you noticed, same or different, in terms of your way of thinking and being in the world now that you're a dad?
I mean, that's how some of the Nepal trip came about as well. Is someone said to me, "Oh, your wings are going to be clipped now," and it really annoyed me. And I thought, no, they're not, and they have been somewhat. But I thought I still need to do some trips because it's what makes me a better version of myself. So I was pretty committed to doing those. That said, I do want to be home more, and I definitely want to be. I've never been a sort of fear junkie or looking for adrenaline or being scared. But after the river trip in Nepal on the paddleboard, we got in a tuk-tuk and it was whizzing around this weird city in Nepal which we've never been to. And I was terrified, and I thought, God, I wouldn't have normally been scared, but I definitely thought, oh, this would be a silly way to go. I need to make sure we get home. So yeah, I think my awareness of fear and risk has jumped a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, my relation, certainly when I became a dad, my relationship with my own mortality, the fact that someone in this world actually might need me, rather than anything else. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
So casting forward, then, what does the future hold for Liam?
I'm back to Ecuador in the winter for a month, guiding out there. So it's a great location in Ecuador. It's in the winter, so it's when it's really cold in the UK, and you go out there, get some warm jungle kayaking, and it's lots of guiding, just showing people good rivers, but also improving people. So sometimes people want to turn it for a week and they want to get better. So I've got that, and then I'm starting to think of doing a trip in March or April, but and I want it to be a solo again, but I'm not sure what. But I definitely want it to be. I want it to be a bit more of a sort of challenge on my sort of not on sort of boredom and mindfulness. I want it to be maybe a week on my own completely, maybe no talking, something which is I'm really going to struggle with, like talking and being quiet. So a good example of that. But yeah, so something close by in England, in the UK, but just a bit of a different challenge. And then in September, I want to go and do the Cape Wrath Trail, the whole entire of that. So starting in Fort William, finishing up in Cape Wrath, a couple of weeks doing that.
And that's amazing. That is a beautiful place to, to go and hang out.
Yeah.
So if you end up being sat, I don't know, on a bench down the quay, and there was a random stranger just ended up sitting next to you, and they went, "I want to live an inspired life." What would be your advice and guidance?
Take the time to really think what you want, and don't listen to other people, but really be committed to your own vision of it. And there's a great phrase which is, "A camel is a horse designed by a committee." When you've got this pure vision of something beautiful and what you want, and then people chip in, well, you could do it this way, you could do it that way. You could do that, but do less of it and do this. And you end up having this diluted version of something you didn't want. So try and get a strong vision of what you want, which I think is really hard, and it takes a lot of effort. And I was lucky in that I found something from an early age that I really enjoyed and wanted to do, but it's taken a lot of effort to stick at it. And not to sort of take the easy routes of working in the family company, or I almost became a teacher at one stage in a primary school, which is an admirable career, but I would have been just absolutely useless at it. So just sticking to what you want to do, being really confident in it.
Cool. So sticking at what you want to do and be confident at it. There's another slogan for another T-shirt. I'm seeing a Liam Kirkham brand of clothing developing now, that can be found at maybe one specific retail outlet in Exeter. So if people wanted to meet you in the flesh, if they wanted to connect with you, if they wanted to say hello, how do they contact you? How do they get hold of you then, Liam?
So you find me down working at AS Watersports in Exeter, the kayak shop. And if you want to get into kayaking and you think, "I've always wanted to," come and talk to me, and I'll get you started in kayaking. It's not as hard as it looks, I think, and it's a great thing to get into the UK. There's plenty of water, so if you want to get into it, I think it's great. Obviously, I'm biased, but there's a lot of water around, so come see us there. And if you already kayak and you want to go paddle some white water, Ecuador's a great location. And I work for a company called Small World Adventures out there, and you can check them out and see if you want to come paddle out in Ecuador.
Cool. Well, thank you very much indeed. Some of you perhaps don't like the idea of necessarily of getting cold and wet, and the idea of maybe going for a float in a boat is something that terrifies you. But for me personally, it's been a fundamentally huge part of my life for the last 20 odd years, and one of the complete and utter joys that I have is the people that you meet on that journey, on that way. And it has been an absolute pleasure to have met Liam, and it's fascinating for me to watch him actually with the people that he meets and the way that he enthuses people. And there's probably a lot of people out there that at times try and make some of the things that we do a bit complicated. And I love the way that Liam just completely demystifies getting wet and having fun. And he's nodding now and smiling, but of course you can't see that on a podcast.
It's a simple formula, isn't it? What's wrong with just fun?
Yeah. There's a floaty thing, and there's a sticky thing, and occasionally you use one end, and occasionally you use two ends, and you go and have a laugh with your mates. And if they're not your mates when they start, then they probably will be by the end, or at least you've had the test and know which camp they fall in. And it's sometimes literally that simple. Very definitely. So I'm going to say goodbye and thank you to Liam now. So thank you very much indeed, Liam. It has been an absolute pleasure to chat with you over the last half hour or so. And so this was Ian Pitchford, and this is the podcast Everyday People Living Absolutely Inspirational Lives. And thank you, Liam.